It's still loading. Still preparing. Okay, I think we're live. As usual. Yeah, I think we're live. Say hello, people. We are finally live.
Hello.
Yay. Hi, everyone. So let me just go back to Zoom. So I'm Antonina Mamzenko, and this is Emma Collins, and we are two of the four co-founders of Made for Documentary. And today we thought we'll do image critique, because we think it's one of the best ways to learn when you see images being dissected and kind of hear suggestions of what could have been done better next time, or what works. So hopefully you'll find this useful. And critiques are one of the main parts of our mentoring program, group mentoring program, turning chaos into art. So that gives you a good glimpse into how it works. Emma, do you have anything to add?
I think you already said it, Rose. So some things we'll talk about why things work, and sometimes it's advice on how to improve. And just listening to anybody's images being critiqued is really useful as well, because they've taken a picture that perhaps you wouldn't have ever thought of taking. So yeah, you can learn from other people as well as yourself.
Yeah, and sometimes you actually learn from other people's more even.
Yeah, I think
objective.
So. Yeah, you're less attached, sort of emotionally attached to images when it's other people. So you can look at it from a really objective point of view and think about what you like or don't like, or think works, doesn't work. Whereas sometimes when it's your own work, you can't see the wood for the trees, because so even that you're necessarily emotionally attached, it's just that you've done that and you're so sort of invested in it, you can't necessarily see beyond it.
Yeah. Feel free to add comments in the Facebook group. I'm keeping an eye on that. In the Facebook chat comments. I'm losing my mind.
Heat.
Yes, if you have any questions, just ask them, and I'll keep an eye on that.
So we've had a quick look through, and we've pre-selected a few that we really want to talk about. And if we've got time, hopefully we'll get through all of those. If we've got time, we'll flick through and get some.
We'll do more, and we try to pick like more different ones as well to talk about. Okay.
Actually, let me. Okay. So this one, it's a really sweet moment. What's happening? Obviously, the focus of the frame is what's happening in here. I've also just point out the color scheme here is really nice, with the oranges and blues and the neutrals. But and I can see what the intention of this image was, to use these two figures here to frame what's going on here. And the shapes of this are nice. Let me just get I like having a tool to annotate with. So here you've got lots of nice triangles, here. So it's an interesting shape, like, the whole way around. It's like a little starfish, isn't it?
Yeah.
So it's an interesting shape to look at. There's a little bit, it could have done with a little bit more tension in the body, like a moment where like maybe her leg shoots out, or the fingers are pointing, like maybe they're unbalanced, because that feeling of tipping immediately gives tension, which is why diagonal lines are really nice, because you've got that wobbly effect. So I like what's going on here, and I like the fact that these figures have been used to frame it, but I feel like I would have personally, I'd have gone in closer. So yeah, and use them more as a real close in frame, like that, I think.
And that would definitely sort of clean up the frame. There's lots of empty space that's not really doing anything for the picture.
Yeah, down here, and these clothes, they're kind of interfering with her head, and they're not really doing anything, not part of this story. So I think that would really take you into the moment where this is happening, and you could then wait for something to happen, either something that they're doing or maybe something that these two girls are doing. Maybe they start laughing or leaning out to catch somebody, and then that draws you much closer into what's happening by going in closer.
You could also, because I can see you've used aperture 2.8, you could also try and shoot at higher f-stop, so narrow aperture, so you get more of the foreground in focus, and that will create a nicer frame. Because you are outside, there's enough light, you don't need to open up your aperture so much.
So if you are going in closer, that will throw out the foreground
even more.
Also, you do need to go up, push your aperture up when you're going in closer, and focus through to the distance, so that the foreground is, that's where the interesting stuff is, and that the foreground is just leading you into there. But this is really a nice idea. Where this is.
Another thing I just noticed, like if you shot down a little bit, just slightly, tilted the camera down, you would have cleaned up the head, that sort of aligned with the trees, I think, a little bit.
Yeah. But like, you know, there's some nice stuff going on. I think some adjustments and waiting for something slightly more to happen, because although they are doing something, there's not an actual moment of something happening. You know, with the falling over or
so there's probably a whole series that maybe you can look back and see what else. Like, we don't even need to see the girl's face necessarily.
Sometimes the temptation is to go for the thing that's like, well, this seems like a really great, perfect composition, very neat. But actually, sometimes the slightly less perfect moment, where a leg is sticking out at a weird angle, actually creates the tension that makes the photograph more interesting.
Yeah. Cool.
This one.
Yeah, I really like this one at first glance. It was really clever way of framing the photo with the reflection. I think it's shot from outside into the cafe, I guess.
He's got a guitar on his lap here. I think it's in the room from a balcony. This feels like a balcony with a...
Oh, yes, you're right.
So I like the fact that because you're shooting in through the window, you're getting environmental context of where they're living, rather than just...
There must be a dad then or something?
Yeah.
Maybe. Okay.
Somebody on the balcony outside the room where the little boy is sitting. What's great is that we're not quite sure, because it's making us think. I like a picture that makes you think and try.
That makes you kind of look harder, and it's not immediately obvious what's going on.
And they've obviously wiggled around so that they've got the child on where the dark reflection is, so that you can then see through the reflection into the inside. But yeah, it's really great that you can see what's going on outside in the context of where they're living. That it's an apartment block rather than a house. It's got looks wintry because you can see what's going on outside as well as inside. Sort of grey winter weather. He's got his coat on. He's smoking. I like the action of this guy outside, and the colour palette's really lovely and neutral. But one little thing is that I presume this would have gone on for a while because the guy's smoking. If something else was happening, even if he's just like touching his head or something, because at the moment the little boy's a little bit inanimate.
Adrian is saying it's a photo of my two sons.
Oh wow! I would never have guessed they were two. They were brothers.
That's really cool.
Yeah, it's really cool. I love the layering. It's great. I just wish there was something else happening here with the little one.
Yeah. So it's if that does go on for some time, you might want to wait for something. So when I saw this image, I immediately thought about Vineet Bohra, who's an Indian street photographer, and he comes up with insane compositions that are kind of like that, but like push it to the next level completely. I never know how he manages to do what he does, but it's worth looking at his work, because that will inspire you a lot if that sort of thing that you like doing.
Just something simple, like if he was itching his nose or putting a bit of apple in his mouth or something, so that they're mimicking the arm action, that would be really nice. But the composition is lovely.
Yeah.
It's really, I like your furniture as well.
Right.
Yeah, it gives you a real sense of the house and the location. And I think that's really lovely, you know, those sort of environmental aspects that sometimes it's quite difficult to get that message across, you know,
especially if it's a flat. If it's a block of flats, it's really difficult to show the environment. So
I was just going to say, it must be a wide angle lens, because to get a balcony is not going to be very,
no.
You're not going to have a huge amount of space on a balcony, I guess, and you're getting quite a lot of information in here, which is really nice. Yeah, really nice. Okay. This picture, I love this picture.
Yeah,
this is a case of waiting, I think, where and you've managed to catch a few nice little moments. I mean, the composition is gorgeous. This lovely shape, this organic sort of shape, bubble shape of the pool that they've been digging is already lovely, and it's creating a really nice frame that the little boy's in with the bucket. You've got
get your tool out, get your drawing tool out, Emma, and show us all the triangles. Because all the children are creating a triangular shape, which is why it works.
This lovely triangle between these 3 kids. You've got lovely little triangles just on, like, you know, the legs of this girl, particularly this girl. She's got really nice tension in her body. You know, she's not quite, she looks like she's just about to hit the water, and, you know, she's really pushing with her toes, and those little details are lovely. And the framing here as well, where you've got this spade here just in this corner, is really nice.
And the shadow of the bird as well is just amazing.
Yeah, and that's the case. I mean, there's a bit of luck there, but it's also like being really aware of what's happening while you're looking through your viewfinder or on the back of your screen, how you shoot, and waiting for those little things to happen and seeing them happen and clicking at the right time.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, these 2 kids, I like this little kid because he's lying in the water. This little foot's coming out of the water and the bucket's next to him. And it doesn't look like he's looking over at the shadow of the bird as well, which is quite interesting.
Yeah.
This little girl isn't doing much, but I still like the shape of where it is in the lake. If she wasn't there,
you wouldn't have worked so well.
So she's playing a part, even if she's not actually doing. I mean, if she had her arm outstretched to coat over here,
or did something else,
if he was flicking his leg up into the you know, there's little things like that that might make a difference, but, you know, essentially the composition is really lovely.
Yeah, and the toning, black and white toning, and the highlights and the shadows is really, really, really nicely done.
I think the choice of black and white is a really good idea here as well, because I think it makes this shadow of the bird stand out more, because you can really accentuate the darks with the black and white, and their bodies are catching the light really well.
Yeah.
But it's lovely, and I like the very slightly quirky, like, I know, tilted angle as well, which is really nice. Yeah. Really, really sweet picture. You can feel the coming in from that angle there, like that, which draws you across the frame to that top corner, which is nice. Yeah, really lovely shot. Have you got anything else to say about that one?
No, I think we said everything. Yeah.
I mean, little things like we were saying, you know, waiting for those actions. Like if she had her arm out, you get another triangle here. If he had his knee there, you get a little triangle there.
So it's like, it's one of those things that kind of will make it even better, but we all know that it doesn't always happen, even if you wait.
You wouldn't have probably got the shadow if you'd have waited for that, and that's kind of magical, that shadow.
Yeah,
it's really perfect shape. But those little, just looking for those little actions, it's like sprinkling a little bit of seasoning into a you know, into a stew. Those a little bit of spice, and those they're like visual. They add little visual excitement, little tiny little shapes all over the place. Eye looking around.
Because you want your eye, you want the viewer's eye to travel across the frame and like from one thing to another and stay with the picture for longer, which is what makes it exciting. And that's it does that.
Nice. Yeah, I like that. Okay. This I really like the idea of this image, because you've got you're focusing on the idea of this cushion saying love with the big heart and this lovely bold color. You know, there's no mistaking what it says. It's really nice and graphic. And then you've got this sort of half and half composition, which I really like, especially as this is a slight diagonal with the boys in the front. But I think that it would have been more successful if there was more focus on these. And I can see you've used aperture 5, which is great, but because you're quite close to these boys,
it's also a zoom lens, so it's 64, 64.
So you're focusing on the background, which is quite far from where the boys are. So it's you're losing detail in here, and it would have been really nice to get a good amount of detail in what these boys are doing and seeing their faces to match up with the idea of this cushion. You've got a nice triangle between the cushion and the two heads there.
Yeah, and I think that's what Claire was trying to do here. Like, she spotted that opportunity for the picture.
To spot those sort of opportunities is brilliant, but to have these boys, I think it would have told much more of a story if you could really see these boys, and if you'd have waited for a moment that either accentuated the brotherly love or did the reverse, where one of them's thumping the other one or something, or pulling the hair, something like that would be really cool.
Yeah.
And what I would do, I would there's so it's on 10,000. The ISO is really high here, actually.
But then the shutter is really fast.
The shutter's high, so you could bring the shutter right down a lot and put the aperture up.
Like
and what
7,
I would do well is, because you're using 62 here on a zoom lens, if you, I'm assuming it's something like a 24-70.
Must be.
I would go right to the low end, the wide angle end, and get closer to them, because you'll, if you're on a wider angle end of a zoom lens or a wider angle prime, there's never the same depth of field difference. So you would be retaining a lot more detail in your foreground or background, wherever you're not focusing, just because you're using a wide angle lens, and move with your feet to get closer to get this framing, rather than standing back and zooming in. And I would also perhaps have tilted the camera. So rather than, because the idea of this really is you've got these two sections, the top and the bottom. And I think if you'd have tilted the camera like that, they would end up being more in the same plane, rather than here where you're shooting across the boys' heads back to the chair. Then you're getting depth to the image. So you're losing, because you're focusing on the back, the foreground is going out of focus. But if you tilted your camera so they were more on the same plane, you also wouldn't have the problem of depth and losing focus. And I think for something like this, the story that you're trying to tell, you don't need that depth. It's not like something's happening over here. It's not like there's somebody in the background doing something that's different to these guys. It's a cushion, and the cushion says something, and you want to reflect that in what's happening in the bottom half. It's like, rather than a foreground and background, it's a top half and bottom half. And so tilting the camera to get that flat plane would, I think, alleviate some of the problems with the depth of field, and it would do what you want it to do in this story.
Yeah, and also, like, I would argue that you probably want to focus on the boys anyway, because if you use a high enough f-stop, it will be obvious that what the cushion says, but you want to focus on the people, not on the furniture. So if you,
the key is to get a higher f-stop and to flatten the focal plane that you're using by tilting, and then you won't have the problem. Because really, I think you do need this to be relative. You need this to be pretty clear.
No, I'm not saying like 2.8 sort of blurry, but it will be enough.
So need the boys to be clear, but then it's a matter of waiting to get the moment that is going to make the story that you want to reflect what's going on the cushion. I really like this idea, and I really like this composition with the two halves. I like a story of two halves in a frame, but it's not quite executed to get that story across. There's a moment missing, and the sort of technical.
And it's one of the sort of big, I think, mental shifts, especially when shooting documentaries, is to stop relying on zooms and actually use wide angle lenses and actually get yourself closer to the action. because it will change the way you shoot a lot, and then you'll be able to capture the action while you're in the action, as opposed to being just an observer. I mean, there's time and place for using zooms, obviously, but when you're just practicing and you're trying to change the way you shoot using, even if you have a zoom lens, just stick it to 24 and don't change it.
Having restrictions like that is a really fun thing to do. So, you know, give yourself a restriction for a week of like, you know, don't touch the zoom. If you've got a zoom lens and you don't have a prime, stick it on one focal plane and get used to that.
And even like use the gaffer tape to, like, some people tape it up with a gaffer tape, so you don't feel tempted.
One focal length, sorry, I said focal plane. And the other thing that I think people tend to rely on is a shallow depth of field, where, you know, yeah, it's really pretty, but unless there's a particular reason for that, if you're trying to get information and story from different parts of the frame and different depths, then you need a higher aperture to capture all of those elements of the story. The classic thing that you would get in you know, portrait or lifestyle photography, but because you're in documentary, they're trying to elevate stories or elevate, like tell stories and bring that through in the frame. So capturing detail is important.
Yeah. So Claire Beatty had an interesting comment in Facebook group. It said it looks like a product lifestyle photograph for the cushion.
Yeah.
Which is, yeah, spot on. And that's, you know, that's when you will use something like that to tell a story of a cushion in relation to the family that's using it.
Okay, should we go on to the next
one? Yeah.
Okay, so this one, clearly the moment that they've been drawn to is this little kid who's incredibly cute, who's fallen asleep out and about doing something. But the trouble is, like, it's a really cute moment, but I'm saying this, my description is, I don't actually know what they've fallen asleep on. They've fallen asleep outside on something. I can't tell if it's a lawnmower or a tractor or what they're doing, or is it a
motorbike?
What motorbike? Yeah, what is it? So I think this is a really sweet moment. It's funny that they've fallen asleep on clearly something mechanical or transport-wise, but it's not giving the full story. It's just, it's not enough of a portrait of them sleeping, but it's equally not got the story of where they've fallen asleep, which would then make it funny. Pulling back just to get more of the vehicle, I think would really help to tell that story. And I think probably going down and shooting up a bit as well, so that you're getting the arms above and that you're shooting up, so that you're getting the head into a cleaner space. It would give you a context of the vehicle and get a better view in as well. And I think I would angle it from this side, because this part of the frame isn't doing much for me. This bit with the handlebars and Yamaha and stuff, that's telling me more about what it is. So I think if you can come in from this view here and shoot up, or maybe not quite there, sort of up here, shoot up to the little kid who's fallen asleep. These arms would then lift to sort of frame it from above. On the little head, you go under the arms to the head and a clean space. You might even then get the head more on the sky rather than with the...
Yeah, there's also two older people, right? There's two sets of hands. So that's like a story that's completely missing here that you need to get across by stepping back. I mean, if it's like a series of photos, sorry, Emma, like if it's a series of photos for a family and there's more wider shots, they will love that picture, obviously.
Yeah, because this is cute. There's no denying that this is cute. But as a single image telling the story, it's not doing that. And also just because I think, again, the angle that is taken out straight across here, you've got this awkward position of here, the eye here, this character. And I think if you went under there, that would probably eliminate that. Because I really like the idea of this photograph. And again, colours and lovely light. It's a super cute little, little kid thing to do, falling asleep in a
yeah.
How do they get comfortable on? And that's the story, isn't it? They're falling asleep. on something that you just can't sleep on.
Yeah.
You need to show the thing that they want to sleep on to tell that part of the story. Or at least give a few more visual clues to what it's on.
Yeah.
I think that would be nice.
Yeah, great.
Yeah.
Okay, next one.
I love this. It's really,
yeah, that's the one we really liked at first glance. So we thought it was a good idea to talk about what works again.
And I really, you've got...
The light is gorgeous. It's sort of evening light, so that makes everything gorgeous.
The colours are really lovely and rich and summery.
And blues and yellows and greens really work together really well.
And she's, you know, the little red costume actually helps draw your eye to her because everything else is in the other warm, earthy tones. You've got a nice triangle down here and here. Nice. And on her arms and legs, you know, there's some really nice little triangles and things going on. Her posture is lovely, the way she's holding her hand and her toe is just touching here, which is really lovely. It's that sort of thing that I mean by tension, you know, that she's just pressing her hair and her little foot's just lifting. It's that
tiny little gestures. It doesn't always have to be a loud action, you know, haha, everything's happening. It can be tiny little things that just elevate the picture.
I love the reflections of the water on this.
Yeah.
But I like having this the steps just here coming into the frame. It feels like a, you know, there's a decking across it. It feels like a sort of,
it's like a garden pool, isn't it? Like in someone's garden.
But I think what I would just a teeny thing to improve is, like, can you see here you've got her head is just touching these leaves. If you slightly budged yourself over it and got her head into this space here, would have been really great, because she'd have been framed that way. She's exactly the right height to fit into this gap. And just a fractional move in this direction. Obviously, I don't know, I mean, maybe you're going to fall down a hole if you go that way, but without knowing the location, I would take a step to the right, or even probably enough just to
lean,
fall down the hole. You can just lean, hold your camera out the way, and you just get her in that gap, and it'd be perfect. Yeah,
beautiful.
it's a really, it's very simple and pleasing. Yeah, nice.
Okay, next one.
Okay, so this is a classic moment, like, you know, action shot, which is quite, you know, it's funny. The boys, they're presumably brothers or cousins, something falling on top. I actually don't know how they've got into this position.
Yeah, kids just, it's
hilarious. But this, and a lot of it has got to do with the fact that it's a 70mm lens. I think you're to get this, you know, quite far from the action, and you're using a 70mm lens, so you're quite far back from what's happening. So it's like you're taking a photograph of what's happening. So it doesn't feel as exciting to look at because you're not in the action. If you had a, I can't tell what lens this is, whether it's a zoom lens or...
It must be 24-70.
70. There's no 70mm length, is there? So I'm presuming this is a 24-70. I would be right on the 24-35 end of this, and I would be standing here, taking, you know, or maybe here, and shooting at what's happening, all those arms and legs and the action, getting down low, shooting up so you can see the boy falling over, accentuating all the limbs with the wide angle. And then I think you get a real feeling of the play and the boisterous sort of play fighting and boys and rough and tumble. Yeah.
Yeah, Claire is saying, I'd like to see the pain or shock in their faces. Is that cruel?
Yeah, exactly.
But it's like, it's one of those things. So when you have a zoom, and I know it about myself, for example, so that's why I don't like shooting with zoom. You get lazy. That's just a fact. and you're like, oh, I can just zoom in. I don't need to walk. I don't need, like, how my brain goes.
But it's a totally different feeling to the shot. So you can stand back and zoom in, but you're shooting at something. So you're at a distance, and the feeling of, as a viewer, is you're standing far back and watching something.
Yeah.
As if you go on a wider angle lens and you walk and you get close, then the person looking at the picture feels like they're in the action, because you're taking a picture closer, so the person who's looking feels closer, and it just accentuates the feeling of being there and the feeling of the fun and the activity, the accident, the pain, whatever it is.
Yeah, and it's one of those things, like, obviously there's something you can't always predict that's going to happen, but if you shoot at a wider angle, you are naturally closer to that. I presume the little boy was playing with the car and the other one was running around, and that's how it happened. But you would have been shooting much closer to the little boy anyway, and then when this happened, you would have been able to create a more interesting sort of picture of limbs and things and flying things. Or also shooting up a little bit would have accentuated that whole thing, because you kind of, I think, a little bit down, but shooting up would have been more interesting.
I think on this one, shooting up, definitely, because you get the feeling of the person falling, or if you're shooting down, I mean, so this also feels like you're kind of standing up and shooting something, and when you're shooting kids, getting down to their level actually automatically makes you feel like you're more with them. So yeah, I would do what we said earlier, tape your
tape your lens. If 24 is a bit scary, try to do it at 35.
35 is good as well.
Yeah, and try that, and just shoot close, like just challenge yourself to get closer. It will be uncomfortable to begin with, but especially if that's your kids, like, that's okay to stick your camera in their faces, they'll be fine.
Get used to the different lengths, and I think with the zoom as well, you can you can just go through every fractional change, but it's quite good to get used to 35, 50, 24.
Yeah, it kind of eliminates a lot of decision making for you, I think, if you just stick to one focal length, and then you can focus on your composition with that focal length, because you know it so well and you know what the results you're going to get, and you can focus on more creative compositions and really controlling your camera to get the best.
If you get used to those different classic lengths and decide one of them really fits how you see the world, then that's the prime that you get.
Yeah.
I really like this image. I think
there's a lot happening in here, isn't there?
I love a complicated image.
Yeah.
Lots of subjects and people, and I mean, there could perhaps be more happening with this guy, but he does bring your eye up to this.
Yeah, I think his expression, it kind of is quite interesting in itself.
Yeah, I mean, it feels like this is he's in a. This is like a two-part room or something. So you've got a wall, like a dividing wall here, and he's behind it. I mean, this one here, this person is great. I love this.
And it also is a diagonal line. So the first thing you see, I think, is the person lying down. Yeah. And then your eye travels to the two kids playing a game, I guess. And then the man in the background, which is really cool. And they're all sort of separated. They don't interlap, which is great.
He's slightly lost in black and white.
A little bit, yeah.
Maybe you could slightly tilt upwards to get his head.
Well, I wonder if it was in color, would have worked better.
I think it's really nice and rich in color, rich in detail, because you get all of the different. Like, this looks like they've been fort building or something, and there's stuff. Or is this a mirror? Maybe this is a mirror.
Ooh! Oh yeah! Oh yeah! That would make sense.
Oh yeah! Look, can you see?
Yeah. That's what's wonderful about complex pictures, is like it takes you a minute to figure it out.
I think it is.
It is a mirror. It definitely is a mirror.
Yeah.
It has to be.
Of the the blanket is that hump there.
Yeah.
I mean, I love this pile of cushions because that's the thought building. And then it's like, you know, the little sisters being left under these pillows while these two got distracted by a game, which makes me chuckle.
Yeah.
Would really make it is if the dad was, I'm assuming it's a dad, I don't know. Because at the moment it looks like, you know, they've ignored the sister and left her there piled under the stuff. But he's just sort of watching it happen. What would be really cool to add another layer of story would be he's sitting there drinking a beer, reading a book on his phone, ignoring what's happening, you know? Whereas he's actually watching what's happening, which slightly disappoints me, you know, in terms of the story. Because I really like the I like all of the position of everything. I would really love to see it in color as well.
Yeah, I think because the light, it looks like there's enough light coming from the window, and then because there's a mirror, it reflects enough light back on the dad.
I think it would be really nice, you know, you get the color. This looks like a rich wood, dark wood. You get color of all of these, you know, the pattern on the curtains, the color of these the cushions and things.
I think we get conditioned to kind of like, if there's a lot of clashing colors or clashing, if it's not all clean and wonderful, we get conditioned into maybe converting it to black and white, to hide all that. But actually, if you embrace that, that will just add a different layer, because then there's all the colors to look at, and all the different textures to explore.
I'd be tempted to slightly, but this little thing on the edge here is distracting me. I'd just bring it in slightly like that.
Yeah, that cleans it up. A tiny little thing cleans it up really well.
Things like that really make a difference. Can you see? That's just my eye is getting drawn to this little blob, and that just tidies it completely. Yeah, I think because of this guy here, another thing I'd have done, because he's not actually doing something, I think I'd have really liked to have seen the image taken from this angle, forgetting him, because I think I fall into this trap as well, because I love split room images and things like that. You know, it feels like, oh, this is cool, this is cool. But if there's nothing actually happening in the different rooms, then it kind of defeats the object. So I think it could also have worked to have taken the photo from this angle. So you're shooting into the corner of the room here. You get really nice dimension of leading lines into the corner, and you'd capture these guys on the left and this girl on the right. And that would be a really nice, that's the story then of these kids ignoring this one underneath their underneath the cushions. And I think that could also work.
Yeah, I mean, you can, like, when you're in the field, when you're shooting with a family, you can obviously, provided that the scene happens for even 2 minutes, you can grab different shots, take that, and if that is not really doing anything, you can then try and switch to.
And so anticipate behaviour, because you've set, you know, I'm not saying you, whoever it is who did this, Joanna, and I'm not saying you specifically, but when you know you set this up, you can think, yeah, this is great, I like this composition, I'm going to do this, and then it's not quite happening because dad's not actually doing something. Like, okay, I've got that shot, he's not going to change. You're anticipating his behaviour. He's not really going to do anything. Let me change and get a different angle and tell this story in a stronger way.
Especially if you've like been with the family for some time, you kind of know what the parents are likely to do. I mean, kids are more unpredictable, but with parents, you kind of know, are they going to be just standing there and watching, or are they going to be on their phone all the time, which will make comedy, obviously. Yeah. Okay.
This image though, really like it.
Yeah.
Okay, and this is really cute.
So kids hiding on bookshelves is it's a really good opportunity.
Really great opportunity, really sweet. It fits just right. And you've got some nice things like, you know, he's obviously thinking he's really funny because he's got his cute face. You've got this nice position of his two hands here. and his, you know, that little bend of his toe there is really sweet. They're all little teeny weeny little triangles. Look, that little bit of spice that I was talking about. Really sweet. I feel like it needs to be slightly straightened on this side. It feels like it's slightly that way. And for something like this, because you are really sort of shooting straight in on these shells and you've got the lines, that is, I would definitely try and straighten that in post if you haven't caught it quite straight in camera, because that's really, because of the lines of the bookshelf, it actually draws your attention to it more.
Yeah, that said, so with this composition, I would be tempted to either go wider, which might not be possible if it's a small room, because you want to see, and we don't have any data about the settings, but if it's not possible to go wider, which would be nice because you want to see all that mess of the children's room, you could either then go vertical, because I think that will clean up the image better, because that thing on the right hand side, I think it's his bed or something, or a fort, it's not really doing much for me, to be honest. And that will just kind of focus your eyes on the boy and the toys on the ground, kind of thing, and the books. And maybe go higher to show more of the... Huh. Hello, we are back. I'm not sure what happened there.
It's probably my internet. My internet is really annoyingly dodgy at the moment.
Okay, I think we're still streaming. Can anyone in the comments let us know if we're still okay?
So where were we? Sorry, you were back. I lost. You just suddenly froze like this. So I don't know if it was me who froze or you, because then I was making funny faces going, ooh.
Yeah, but yeah, apparently we're back. Yeah, so that's cool.
Okay, last thing I heard was that something we were talking about the size of the room being small.
Oh yeah, so if you, I was saying, like, if you can't move back physically, I feel like stuff on the right hand side is not really adding information for me, so I would have gone vertically.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah.
I mean, I need more to see more of what it is for it to make a difference. So I would have gone vertical, because I actually have similar pictures of my son naked in the bookshelves when he was a bit younger. So I've tried all sorts of, it was his hiding place. I tried all sorts of things. So I think like vertically is really fun, because then you can see the bookshelf and then you can see all the toys on the floor as well, if you can do it that way.
Yeah, I do like the wallpaper though.
Yeah, I do like the wallpaper.
I actually really love that wallpaper. Where's it from?
Kids get the cutest.
Yeah. Because also, I mean, I know you're saying this isn't adding much to, but I find this wall a bit blank as well here. So,
but I do like the toys and the drum.
I do like the toys, yeah, and I do like this wallpaper. I don't know, yeah. I would grab this shot before everything breaks, falls, and hurts himself, and then if you've got time, take some other shots of like I don't know, shooting upwards to show her height, like vertical, maybe going into the corner.
Yeah, close up, like even a close up picture would work here really well, I think.
And there's lots of opportunities to do different things here because it's a really cute, funny moment.
And it's one of those things, like, again, when you're in the field, you grab the obvious shot first, because you don't know what's going to happen. And when I say grab the shot, we don't want you to go like rushing around. We want you to slow down anyway, but get the shot first, and then if there's time, be creative.
Get the safe shot, and then think, what am I actually trying to say?
Yeah.
What am I trying to accentuate? Am I trying to accentuate how small he is in relation to the bookshelf? Am I trying to accentuate how cheeky and naughty he is? Am I trying to show, I don't know, the behavior of children, the peculiar behavior of children in relation to adults? And then think about how you can accentuate those stories with what you're being presented with.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so this one I thought was an interesting image to talk about because I see the intention. I see the kind of the sweet moment. I get a goat. Is it a goat? Looks like a goat.
Looks like a
And the
goat. Actually.
yeah,
And you've obviously used this diagonal here.
yeah, which is really nice. And
Yeah.
they seem to be the boy and the goat seem to be similar coloring, but it doesn't quite work because of the angle you're shooting at.
Yeah.
I feel, and also a really extremely shallow depth of field.
Yeah.
So what I would do is try either shoot from the back to kind of like see the boy and the goat behind him or something like that, and wait for them to be separate in the frame. Yeah.
Yeah. Shooting.
Or shoot from here and then try and get really close to what is it, 35. So you can like merge yourself into that fence and try and get it.
What you want to try and get is a lick, don't you? Or
Yeah.
The yeah.
So you would focus on the profile of the child. So that would be in the main, like 2/3 of the picture, I would say, and then wait for that something from the goat. And you only need to see the nose of the goat. And that would be a better picture. I think like sometimes shooting from above can work really, really well. But when it's
shooting from above, because you it's what we were talking about with that love cushion, it flattens the plane. So you get a flat plane. So it's actually quite, nice for detail.
Yeah, but here you don't need it here though.
Detailed, like here, like you're just getting the back of his neck, and you can just about tell it's a goat, but the goat's not actually doing anything. So the nice element of this is the diagonal line, but there's nothing, and you've got the diagonal across this way of the two heads. There's nothing actually happening, and you're kind of, by shooting from above, you're not seeing what could happen.
It could be the lick, like it could be licking him on the head, but we can't see it.
Because where you're shooting down, you're not seeing that, are you? And so get yourself in a position where you are going to be able to see that and wait for that to happen. It might not happen.
Yeah.
But you're fine. Exactly. Not everything happens how you want it to happen, is it? The planets don't always align.
But you want to put yourself in the best position for it to be able to capture that. Okay.
Okay.
So this one, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so because this is obviously, something has stuck onto the bottom. So what's nice about this is you've got a cute pair of leggings, dirty bottom, something stuck on it. But so this is that thing where people tend to use a low aperture, and I always encourage people to push their aperture up, because, and especially if you're going in close to something like this, the fact of going in close means that you are going to get a massive variation in depth of field if you're using a low aperture. So things that are, you just, everything will be out of focus apart from that one little slither, because the close proximity to the subject means that everything gets out of focus very, very quickly. So because it's on 2.5, I mean, the focus is somewhere here on this bottom as it's going down. So this, where this is happening, is out of focus. Whereas if this had been shot, I mean, you've got a really low ISO, so you can bump that up to, like, 2, 3, 4,000. The shutter speed is fast. It's not a fast moment. You can go up to 9, 10, 11 on here. And because you're close, you'd still get falling out of depth of field on the background down here. But you'd actually get the things that matter will be in focus, whereas this is losing the focus.
Yeah, the hand is not in focus, which is where the action is.
And I do like the fact that it's super close, but I want it a little bit slightly different angle, or maybe slightly further back, so I can see, because it looks like the child is leaning over and pulling their jacket up, and because it's so close, you're cutting off this hand up here, and I quite like that. I like the ripples in the fabric up here and where they're lifting it up, and I think I want to see that.
Yeah, you definitely want to include more hands, or even I would say, because the child is with their back to you, to include the parents, actually go even wider, to include the parent, and they're kind of like disgust or whatever they're doing or trying to help them. That's interesting. Or even like more of their hand, so the hand maybe goes up to here or something to kind of really.
It's an awkward place to cut the hand. It's right on the wrist, and this one you're just, you cut the fingernails. Just a bit. I want to see that hand, and I want to see a little bit of arm here.
Yeah.
Or before the mum's pulling it off, you get a picture of the child bending over, showing their bottom. So you're really focusing on this part of the story, the dirty bottom and the thing sticking on it, rather than the part of the mum tending to the child.
Yeah. So sometimes it's the anticipation of what's going to happen next is more interesting than the documentation of the actual action.
Yeah. Because I mean, this is classic. They wear these leggings. They're bright coloured, fun leggings. Your childhood sort of look. And the dirty bottom always here and on the knees.
And it's also fun because they're unicorns, so I assume it's a girl. I could be wrong. Yeah. It's fun to sort of combine the pink unicorns with dirt of childhood play, like outdoor play. I think it's a really nice juxtaposition as well.
Yeah, but it's just decide what you're doing. Is it the fact that the mum is helping the child, or is it funny that the trousers are dirty and they've got something on their bottom? And I think in this case, that's the funny thing, the fact that they've got something on the bottom. They're probably standing there going, oh, look what I've got on my bottom. And that's the funny bit. So frame it so you've got their arms, they're lifting it up, and you've got a good old close-up of the bottom. But stick your aperture up. There's absolutely no reason at all to have such a low aperture.
Yeah. Outdoors, especially, it looks like a sunny day, like you don't really need to.
The temptation to go on a low aperture, creamy background, and that, if you're close to the subject, something like going in close really accentuates the story, feel like you're there, but that also has the effect of really accentuating depth of field. So you do not need a low aperture, and you will still get a fallout of focus.
Yeah.
And then you will ensure that the things that are important are in focus.
Cool. Shall we go to the next one?
It's a nice picture.
Yeah. So there's nice frame, it's central framing with the walls falling into the darkness and this bright window. I think it's reasonably well exposed for the highlights here.
It's really nice because you're playing with two different things, aren't you? You've got the exposure for the outside, which means the inside is in darkness, which is how your eye sees, but we slightly compensate for it more. Our brain. But I think I think it's absolutely right to get this kid in silhouette form. And you've actually got him in a good position to see his profile. If you've got a silhouette with someone behind at the back of their head and not doing anything, it's just like a sort of blob.
Yeah.
You need to get profile and limbs to make a silhouette interesting. And here you've got him, enough of his profile and his arm, and you've got the little feet of the toy, which I like as well. And I love that it's in contrast. His arm is going that way and this arm is going that way, and it's pulling you to each side of the frame and creating tension across the frame, which is lovely.
It's really well spotted. That's a good opportunity. Yeah.
And it's like I feel like they've seen the opportunity of either a window cleaner or the dad, I don't know, cleaning the windows, and the kid, whether he is copying from the inside or whether he happens to be playing, the person taking the photographs obviously seen the potential of the story that they are mimicking and waited for that moment where you've got the sort of juxtaposition of directions. It wouldn't have been as effective if the arms were in different positions.
Yeah.
And I mean, really, really great. It's right on the edge here, right on this corner here, and right on this edge here. It's pulling you to this direct over here and up to that corner. and this one's pulling you right over here. So it's really stretching the eye across the frame, but at the same time, this lovely central composition with the window frame, framing particularly the younger subject really nicely. I wonder, like, if you're going to be ultra critical, I really like this, so don't get me wrong. His face just coming in is a little bit distracting. I don't know whether, I mean, this is like anything, you know, the perfect storm. If either his head was slightly more into the frame, leaning over, or slightly more out, so you just see the arm.
I don't know, I don't mind it actually.
Fabulous. I mean, I really love it. And you can even see, because the exposure's good, the
water
and the soap on the window.
Yeah, it's funny because the what are they called, the thingies in the glass, it goes right across his mouth, which makes it kind of funny. It doesn't seem wrong. Obviously that's, you know, the position he's in and that's it. But
I'm going to talk about aperture again here.
Yeah.
I bet if we zoomed in, obviously these are low quality images. I'm assuming the focus looking on here is on the little boy, which is great, but this is also important. And okay, this arm hit, where it's touching is in the same plane, but you don't need to be on 1.4. You need to be on something higher to tell the story.
It will accentuate, I think if it went high, it would accentuate all the drops of water and those kind of things in the window as well, which would be cool.
I would, just because there's going to be because 1.4 means you've just got such a small slither in focus, and I do want to see this arm, the drops of the water, and the boy and this little creature. So you want to be at about, I don't know, 5, I think, and you've got plenty to work with because your shutter speed's really high here. And if anything as well, it's very slightly overexposed on the top here.
Yeah.
So you could afford to increase your aperture anyway. Your ISO, you're somewhere in the middle there, so you've got flexibility on all of those to bring up the aperture. But you don't want it too narrow, the aperture, because I do like the fact that the house behind isn't as clear. But I want to make sure that all these details of the window frame, the chamois leather cloth, the guy outside.
I mean, the fact that it's a 23mm lens, I don't know what lens is, 18 to 55 something, it helps because obviously, as we discussed, when it's a wider lens, there's no compression as much, so you don't lose as much as when you shoot on a longer lens in terms of focus. But yeah, still. And I think also I noticed that you shoot in aperture priority, and I don't know whether that's just your default setting. But I would really encourage you to try and shoot in manual because it will give you more control over. Because if you're in aperture priority, you stuck it at 1.4, and the camera is deciding for you what shutter to use. Which is tricky in situations like that. That is tricky. You can't trust the camera to do that.
The lighting's really complicated for a camera to work out if you've got bright and dark. So I think you'd have much more control if you're in full manual mode. And the other thing with, just going back to this 1.4, slightly miss the focus with 1.4, then it's, you know, if you don't need it to be 1.4, and you could have 2.5 or 3.5, whatever.
I would say 1.4 is for when it's
you're allowing you're not going to miss focus because you've got that wider narrower aperture. It's going to reduce the shots that you miss for focus. Unless there's a reason for it.
Which is like, I guess it's when it's really, really dark and you have no option. You can't push your shutter speed anymore. You can't push your ISO anymore. Yeah.
Last one.
Well, let's do this one and see how we're doing for time.
So this one is a nice family moment, you know, Dad, and I actually like the framing. I like the fact that it's a reasonably wide angle lens, and you've got quite close to these two foreground subjects, and you've got that going on in the background. But
it's a nice way to include the whole family in the picture.
And and this sort of V shape that these two are making makes a nice frame for what's going on in the background. I think for me, there's not quite enough of a moment with either of them. I feel like the little boy, if he'd have been pointing at something on the page, wait for those sort of moments to happen. Or maybe the mum closes her eyes because she's tired, or the little, I mean, this is quite nice, little baby's holding on, they do this. But what I would do, as well as this shot, I like shots where the foreground frames, like the very first one we look at, and actually you're focusing on the background because that takes your eye into the picture. Whereas this, you're focusing on the foreground, and then what's happening in the background is incidental. So get this shot, but also get a shot where you're looking at, or you're focusing on what's happening here, and this is framing what's happening there. And I think you could hold this. This is not a fast moving moment, and you can wait for things to happen where, pointing, talking, mum, maybe some eye contact between them, closing her eye, anything like that, where it's a little bit more of a story.
Yeah, and like we probably should have said that at the start. Like we always, when we approach critiques, we always think about how you can improve that. Obviously, in the real world, like maybe the boy is just like my son when he does not have any expressions when being read to, like it's just a blank, and that's him, and that's fine. But we always approach this: how can you make it better so that it can be used in your portfolio, it can be used on Instagram, so you can put your strongest, absolute strongest images that work on multiple levels to attract clients.
And yeah, it's like, I think we often say this, this is a great image for the family, but you wouldn't necessarily. I'm just going to slightly look at the framing, because like this,
it bothers me that bit, yeah.
And also his fingers down here, so I'm wondering if you bring it more like that might clean up the edges a bit more. Yeah, that feels nicer.
Yeah, maybe a bit more so that earlobe isn't.
Sorry, the earlobe.
The earlobe, yeah.
Totally agree. We can't cut off the mum at all, but those fingers down annoying me as well.
Yeah, and also I guess if you show up a little bit at the mum, if you were doing that picture that Emma was talking about where the dad and the boy or a girl framing the mum, then you would shoot up a little bit too, so you can see more of her. Because
if you're shooting through the foreground to the background, which just adds, we're talking about diagonals and things and taking your eye across the frame, that's thinking of the frame as something that's going three-dimensionally. If you're shooting at something further back, that's taking your eye through the 3 dimensions into the back. And if she then becomes the focus of the subject, then yeah, I think you need a little bit more of her head there.
Yeah. And like with a scene like that, because it's slow moving, they will be with the book and breastfeeding for a while, hopefully. You can try this in the other, and you can go from the top, you can go from the bottom, you can go from all sorts of angles. And that's the beauty of those kind of shots, where you can really take your time and figure out what works best, as opposed to like fast moving things where you're either there and you took the picture, or you didn't get the picture and it's gone.
Yeah, exactly. You're going to have plenty of time, I think, so adjust the composition until it's, just keep fine tuning the composition and waiting for the moments if you've got something like this.
Yeah, and that waiting for things to happen is something that we talk a lot, because the worst thing.
Sorry, there's someone at the door. Can I leave you speaking about this?
Okay. Waiting for the moment is something we talk a lot about, because chasing the pictures, you are always one step behind, and you risk not getting any good shots. And when you're always chasing the action, whereas if you have an opportunity to try and predict behavior, or if it's a slow scene, when you find the best composition and you stick there and you don't move and you wait for things to happen, then you'll be in a great position to have an image that not only has a good composition, but also a moment. Because when you just chase for the moment, it's you will have a picture of a moment, but not necessarily the best composition, for example, or the best settings for that sort of image.
Sorry.
Yeah, I just finished talking, which is brilliant.
My teenagers are always ordering things and knocking on the door. Right, so I think that's all the ones we selected. So should we?
Yeah.
What I stopped share rather than anything else. Sorry. Not what I meant it to do. Sorry, I meant to do this.
Yeah, we probably could do maybe, I mean, I have to go soon anyway, but we can, I don't know, we can do one more if you fancy anything in particular.
Have you got anything that you like?
Should
we look at this one?
Yeah, let's look at this one.
I quite like this. You know, it's the kind of, but the colours are really lovely in this, aren't they? And you've got these nice lines of the background and the lovely sort of yellow and blue.
It's a lovely, well, lovely is the wrong word, but it's kind of lovely. A fun moment. I guess it's the mom. And I love that we can see her face with the expression, and then you can sort of feel the impact.
Yeah. Do you know what I'd really love to see on here though? Like, I'd love to see this bit.
Close up.
Yeah. I love her fingers.
Yeah.
And her face. It'd be really nice to get that moment really close up. I think.
Would you shoot it like diagonally or instead of being front on?
It's very, so has this got enough symmetry in the central moment to do it straight on?
I think so.
Works straight.
With all the pillows and her being right in the center of it.
And there's not, you know, that it's well exposed so that the background isn't too bright and distracting on the edge. I find it slightly distracting the curtain on the
curtains, yeah.
I'm just wondering whether you can
crop that.
Like, I don't know. I don't think it matters if you lose the legs a bit.
I do quite like the sort of toes, sort of almost sticking out of the.
Is that?
Yeah, that might work. A bit too close, maybe.
So somehow we've got the cushions framing the bottom.
Yeah, and by the way, when we're doing that, we're not encouraging people to crop in after the fact, because that is never quite the same as the original. Obviously, straighten the horizon, crop little bits and pieces that are distracting, but bigger crop like this don't always work. So it's better when we're doing this, we're showing you how we think you should have composed it in the first place.
Yeah. I think you could do that as well if you really wanted to.
Yeah, but I like your idea of just focusing on her face, because that we don't need to see the whole room really.
I think the story is him falling on top of her, isn't it? And
yeah.
Crushed, and I think it would be really nice to maybe shoot upwards towards the face up there.
Yeah. Yeah, like from that side, from the right a little bit. Yeah.
Face, because I really like his t-shirt as well. And getting close. It's that thing we were saying, no, the 35. So quite far away from the subject, and what's happening is you're shooting at what's happening rather than, so therefore when you're looking at it, it feels like you're watching what's happening. Whereas if you get in closer, it's not always the right thing to do. It's just a different way of doing it. So it's a different interpretation of what's happening. If you're getting closer, then you feel like you're close to the action, and so the viewer feels like, you know, you are close to the action. So the viewer who's looking at the photograph after the fact feels like they're closer to the action as well. And this feels like it would be quite a nice composition here somehow.
Yeah, definitely. Cool. So we also wanted to remind you guys that Turning Chaos into Art, our group mentoring program, is open for enrollment. and it's going to be open for some time. We only start in beginning of September, but the early bird discount ends today at midnight. So if you want to get on that, get on that now. And we only have 12 spots available in total, and about half of them are gone already. So get on that if you're interested. I can post the link in the comments here if you want to check it out. Do you have anything to add, Anna? No, we've had a lot of fun over the past 6 months with our first cohort. We've seen amazing progress that they've made.
Yeah. Amazing. It's been absolutely amazing. I've loved it, every minute of it, and watching people push themselves out of their comfort zones and trying new things, and pennies dropping and things. It's just been really amazing. Yeah, they've been brilliant. It'd be sad to see them all go. Yeah. We've got, some of their work on our Facebook page, and
yeah, it's really like with any group mentoring programs like this, the key is to really commit yourself to it and try it, even if it feels weird or uncomfortable, and try everything.
I think sometimes as well, actually, it's an interesting thing to point out about group mentoring. I think sometimes there's like people are really shy about like being with other people, and what happens if I'm not good enough, what happens if I can't keep up, and go for sort of private mentoring instead. But actually the amount that you gain from watching other people as well is just incredible, and that group community feel and support is so beneficial, and adds an extra layer to the experience of being mentored.
Yeah, and I think like when there's 11 other eyes looking at you, and sort of you're that much more accountable to really committing and trying things and submitting things and listening to feedback and then improving on that feedback. And we've seen like people submit images for critique, will point out things that didn't quite work, and then like in 2 weeks' time we'll see them sharing versions of those shots but better, and we're like, yes, the penny dropped. It's brilliant. It's constant feedback loop that is just so amazing, and that's what sort of 6 months gives you to do that. Michaela is saying it's an incredible course. Well, Michaela, you've been incredible because we've seen you kind of fully commit, and I'm going to do this. And Farder's saying very much looking forward to September. We are too. Thank you for signing up. That would be really cool.
I saw some of the images in the critique, Fardo. They were great. Thank you for supporting, really.
If you have any questions, we're going to wrap up now, but if you have any questions or even either about the critique, things that were mentioned during the critique, or about the group mentoring program, just put them in the comments and we'll get back to you. Right, I'm going to stop sharing live now. Wait a second. I'm going to figure out my controls. Bye.